American Bear Center here in Ely, Minnesota, where it's actually a lovely morning. It's probably around 60 degrees, very light breeze, and no clouds, a nice clear blue sky. I'd like to welcome all the people here at the North American Bear Center today attending our first bear enrichment opportunity. And I'd also like to welcome some very special people here today. We have the Bear Study class of Dr. Lynn Rogers. It's their last day today of their class, and they've had a phenomenal experience. And PTZ driver Heidi. PTZ driver, focus on the forest tree line. Holly Bear is in her deadfall. Let me go back again and welcome the Bear Study class participants. They've had a phenomenal last few days out in the wild looking for bears and learning all about wild bear behavior. But here back at the North American Bear Center, we have one of our staff members, Heidi, who we call Mom number 1, to Holly Bear. Holly Bear is coming down a deadfall just to the right of Heidi. If she comes out of the woods, I would request everybody on the deck with me to be very quiet. She is our new little addition to our ambassador bears of Ted Lucky Honey. And we actually right now have her out here alone. We will be letting Lucky and Honey out in about 15 or 20 minutes. As you can see, Holly Bear, she's just a little yearling. She's being very cautious, looking around. She has a little something to eat. She's being fed right now red grapes and unsalted peanuts in the shell. For those of you here at the North American Bear Center, I will be giving some directions to a volunteer worldwide called the PTZ driver. That's pan, tilt, and zoom camera that is located on one of the pillars of our observation deck. That allows anybody in the world to observe bear activity here in our 2.5 acres, and it is manned by one of the worldwide volunteers and supporters of the North American Bear Center. Without their volunteering, these worldwide podcasts could never happen. Holly Bear is 18 months old. She was a wild orphan cub born in the state of Arkansas. She was sent to a rehab facility after she was taken away from a private party who had her for a number of months. I assume with the expectation of domesticating her. You can't just do that. So she was sent to a rehab facility and deemed non-releasable. I'm going to lower my voice a little bit since she's in the viewing area. Being deemed non-releasable, she either had to find a forever home or be euthanized. Well, she found the North American Bear Center, and we are very happy to have her here. She hibernated right after she got here on December 27th, came out of hibernation in early April, and was cleared to expand her territory into these 2.5 acres and begin the integration process with Ted Lucky and Honey. What you're seeing right now is one of the people that she has bonded with and sees as a surrogate mother. She's reasonably confident down here alone with Heidi. And you will probably see some different interaction and different behavior of Holly Bear when Heidi leaves the scene. For those of you looking at her here at the Bear Center, you can see some scruffy brown hair that Heidi is actually stroking at the moment. And trust me, nobody else gets to do this. She's comfortable with Heidi doing that. All that hair is going to be coming out. It's her winter coat. And she is going to be a black bear. If you hang around a little after Heidi leaves the scene, we will be having Lucky, our 7-year-old male, and our 18-year-old female, Honey, out. And Honey is a cinnamon phase black bear. Holly is very comfortable right now with Heidi out there. It would be a little different if there was one of the bears out with Heidi and Holly. Our goal here is to get Holly comfortable here, coming down here alone on voice commands versus having someone go into the enclosure to get her. She has on some occasions come down on voice commands only. On other occasions, like this morning, actually Heidi had to go in and bring her down. People ask, how do we move bears around in the 2.5 acres? Well, they move around as they would. But if we need them in their small pens, and by small pens I mean something about the size of a 2-car garage, our motivation is food and knowing that we are their caregivers and knowing that we have their best interests. We can move them. We aren't always successful. Occasionally they have something else in mind. You just happen to see Holly stand up on her 2 legs. She's looking around to see who's out there. And now you're going to see Heidi's exit. PTZ driver, Holly, is right by the scale. In fact, now Holly is on the scale. For those of you that do not know, that's a wooden box that actually sits on top of a scale. We put treats in the trough there at the front of the box, and the weight is recorded inside so someone reads that weight. The other day she was at 89 pounds. She came to us at 84 pounds. That was a weight in mid-December. We estimated she came out of hibernation at approximately 54 pounds, although we were not able to weigh her. That is our guesstimate. So she is already back to her pre-hibernation weight. She is being very cooperative, sitting on the scale, but if you watch, she's eating her peanuts, and the head is going, looking around, who's in the neighborhood. Staff members, I noticed, have gone up the path to let Honey out, as well as Lucky. That could take anywhere from 5 minutes to 10 or 15. Depends upon how anxious they are to come down here in the viewing area. A little bit about the North American Bear Center for those of you that have never been here before, or are you just listening for the first time. The North American Bear Center is an educational facility to try to dispel myths and misperceptions about black bears that many of us have, including myself. And I'll just kind of tell you a couple of misperceptions I had. One of them is that black bears like beehives because they really like honey. Well, I heard that as a child and thought that was really true. Well, it isn't. They like a beehive not so much for the honey, but for the immature bees. It's a source of protein for them, and they may get stung in the process, but they're willing to put up with a sting or two to get the immature bees as a source of protein. We do have one staff member still down there that threw out some food for Holly, but now she's pretty much on her own. For those of you on the deck as well as the PTZ driver, whether it be Lucky or Honey, they more than likely both will come from the right. For those of you on the deck, it is quite likely that when they do show up, they will come from the right. Holly is in the middle of the viewing area, and she is actually, or was a moment ago, playing with a cube or a block that has a couple holes in it. She's had that a couple of times, and she is very adept, if she wants to be, to flip that over and over and over to get the treats out of it. It has two holes in it, and unless you flip it over correctly, no treats come out. A couple of favorite locations of Holly is exactly where we found her this morning, about 10 minutes ago, and that is in a couple deadfalls that are laying at approximately a 35 to 45 degree angle, about 25 to 30 feet directly across from the observation deck. That was her first refuge, because when she climbs up that, she at the end is about 15 feet off the ground, and we have seen her sleeping and spending a significant amount of time there. As I said, that was really her first refuge, because she was concerned about Ted, Lucky, and Honey. Her second refuge is a white pine, a half alive and half dead, and for those of you that are on the deck, I will point that white pine out to you. It is on the left. It is forked at the top. It is the tallest tree on the left. And if you look halfway down, it is alive and the top half is dead. That's the largest white pine in the 2.5 acres. And 7 years ago, when we had Lucky brought to us in July of '07, he was a cub at about 8 months old. He gravitated to that white pine, and we still call it today his cub tree. Coincidentally enough, all on her own, Holly has taken to that tree as well. That white pine, we have found her sleeping in it, climbing in it on various levels, as well as using it as a lookout, because if there's a couple branches there that she has an excellent view of where she herself, Holly, is standing right now. I have seen her sit on those branches in that white pine, looking at the other bears in the area she is in right now, wondering whether she should go down from the white pine or stay put. Why do black bears like white pines? I get asked that question because, as I've just narrated to you, both Lucky and Holly have gravitated to that white pine. It's really about the white pine's bark. The bark on a white pine doesn't come off very easy, and it's slightly curved, and it's also obviously a tree that grows in this area. There are various other trees in this area that if you try to climb it or look at their bark, it's either slippery, it flakes off, or it really is hard for a cub to grab and climb quickly. A white pine in this area is also a tree that a mother with cubs will, many times coming out of a den for the winter, that mother will walk her cubs to a white pine as one of their first places of day beds when they come out of a den. If the mother bear senses danger, she will send the cubs up that white pine with some very simple grunts. For example, she's signaling her cubs to get up the white pine and take refuge. So we call the white pine a refuge tree. For those of you on the deck and the PTZ driver, we do have one of our other bears coming down into view. Look right to the food shed. We have Lucky Bear. Holly Bear has seen that. PTZ driver, Holly Bear is at the base of the pat tree. Lucky Bear is moving toward the scale. I'm really happy to see that Lucky came down first. Lucky and Holly have begun the beginnings of some type of friendship. We have seen them play together. And now note that Holly is actually moving toward Lucky. She is comfortable enough to move this close. Lucky is on the scale, not paying attention, except now we're nose to nose. And I think we are experiencing or observing a little play. There are treats in what we call that donut. It looks like a little inner tube. Has a couple holes in it. Lucky may play and toss it around and put it on his head. What is so fascinating about this behavior, especially those of you that have been watching our podcasts and watching the interaction between all our bears, is that was just a matter of a few weeks ago, Holly would have been in her deadfall, run to the white pine, or she would have been frantically scattering away from one of the big bears. What we have here now is their nose to nose, sharing a toy, and Lucky is willingly sharing a toy with Holly. If our 18-year-old female bear, Honey, comes down, and I don't know if she's going to mosey on down or not, this behavior could significantly change. For the PTZ driver, if you're not already focused on them, they are right in front of the rock den. I want to say thank you in advance for all of you on the deck here. You're being very quiet and very patient. The quieter you are, the longer you are likely to experience behavior without human interruption. This is the first time I have seen Lucky and Holly share a toy. I don't know about anybody else, but I find that really quite interesting. Lucky usually does not share his toys. For those of you that have followed Lucky, he usually is pretty possessive of his toys, and sometimes to the extent where he'll actually pick up the toy and take it in the woods. Also note that little Holly is eating. Doesn't seem overly concerned about Lucky. One thing we have not seen much of Holly do is swim in the pond. In the morning, I have seen her climb on the rocks before we turn on the waterfalls. She has climbed up and down the two falls on the left. I've also seen her trying to bite the water that comes down the waterfalls. She opens her mouth and tries to bite the water, but she doesn't, I don't think we have seen her swim in the pond, and I could be corrected by some of our volunteers who are avidly watchers of our podcast, but I don't recall seeing her actually swim in the pond. I'll talk a little bit about Lucky. Lucky is our 7-year-old male, and he has a similar background. He is also, or was, a wild orphan, picked up by humans from a den, eventually sent to a rehab facility where he was deemed non-releasable, just like Holly. The options for Lucky were the same: hopefully find him a forever home, or euthanasia. Lucky came to us as a cub in July of '07, at a little under 20 pounds. At that time, Ted Bear, our 17-year-old male, actually took on a big brother role to Lucky, and they became best buds. Roles are a little bit reversed now for Lucky. Lucky now is the big guy, and I believe Lucky will play the big brother role to Holly, but we'll just have to wait and see. But it clearly looks like a friendship is developing. I don't at the moment see any sign of Honey coming down. For those of you that are here at the North American Bear Center, if you do see a brown or really cinnamon phase black bear, I would encourage you to continue to watch. Watch not only Lucky, but what happens between Honey and Holly. I'll give you a little heads up about what you may see. Honey is our 18-year-old female, and in the wild it is a matriarchal society. By that I mean pretty much the ladies run the show. Honey has on a number of occasions treed Holly, pretty much to tell her who's running the show here in the 2.5 acres. And by treeing Holly, I mean she chases Holly. Holly finds a tree, runs up it quickly, and we have seen Honey slap at the base of that tree, kind of like an exclamation point to say, "Good, I'm glad you ran up the tree." Pretty much telling Holly who's the boss. And Holly knows that. So if Honey does come down, it more than likely will not be what you see right now. I want to thank all of you people here at the North American Bear Center, and I would encourage you to hang out and kind of watch here in the viewing area if Honey does make an appearance. And I also want to say thank you to those people out in the World Wide Web, the volunteers and supporters of the North American Bear Center and the Wildlife Research Institute, who make these worldwide broadcasts possible. Especially the skilled PTZ drivers who have really had their work cut out for them this year with Holly Bear, because she can really scoot around quickly. And I know when you're a PTZ driver, you got to be fast. I also want to inform the visitors here at the North American Bear Center, we're open every day from 9 to 7 p.m. And your admissions today is a day pass. So if it's about lunchtime right now, or you want a cup of coffee or go get a sandwich, feel free to do so. You can come back as many times as you'd like during the day. We will have another bear enrichment opportunity at 1 o'clock today, as well as 4 p.m. We know that you have other choices in the Ely area for your entertainment as well as educational opportunities. And if you're interested in other wildlife, I might suggest the International Wolf Center, located at the opposite end of downtown Ely. It is also a fabulous place where they have a pack of wolves that you get to see interact. If you are interested in following our podcasts in the future, I'd ask you to go to www.bear.org, click on View Cameras, and click on PTZ Camera. We'll be there every day at 11, 1, and 4 p.m. Thank you for visiting us, and wherever your travels may take you, please be safe. Thank you.